It's the best way to start
your own work
right
or somebody else's work. Whose
work?
work?
My own work.
Your
my
work?
own work. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, baby.
If I say this weekend, it's my work. Yeah.
Copy that. That's
most
good.
Definitely.
Man. Well, I want to start what you heard on this first topic. We went a little bit in reverse. I want to talk to you about Mac Jones. Good. Now, admittedly, and I'm keeping myself out of this part because I don't feel like I was doing this, but I feel like to some degree, Mac Jones has been getting kicked around a little bit in the conversations. I mean, like how you kick a can when you was a little kid, that kind of situation was happening with Mac Jones. We were kicking that can a lot. And I feel kind of funny about that because I'm like, I watched enough games with him, even in the New England system, and what they were doing. I watched enough games with him to know that the man has some ability and he has talent. He's not a bum, you know. I can name some bums that I think don't even belong. They need to go somewhere else. But he's not that. I want to hear your thoughts because he's from Bama, and you always thought pretty highly of my belief. I think you and Raj both shared that initially, and we got a situation where, in my opinion, it felt like the Patriots did him dirty. They didn't do what they would have done for maybe Tom Brady.
I think they expected him to beat Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think that's more accurate. They gave him what they gave. Yeah, well, I think they gave him what they gave Tom Brady and just expected it to work. Tom never had like the greatest of receivers. He always had a good defense. He always knew exactly how that thing worked. And that's just not Mac Jones, But also, Tom Brady never had two defensive coordinators as offensive coordinator either. So that's
those are all offerings, man. And then just being kind of thrown in. Those are the kind of things like that's not good for a quarterback first time out to shoot. Everybody theoretically should have time to mature into the role and kind of if you can. I feel like they had a chance to do that with him, but they didn't do that. They kind of threw the whole kitchen sink at him. It's like and they expected him to come out, not smelling like poo. And it was like, that's not reasonable. But I want to hear your thoughts on Mac Jones. How do you feel about where he is now? I don't know where he's going to end up going, but it's a pretty safe bet because he carries almost a $5 million cap hit. They're probably going to do something with him.
Right. And I see, I was trying to read up on him more, and there's like most likely to be traded. I'm not sure if you can throw a late round pick out there for Mac and give it, he's got 1 year left on his contract since they declined his fifth year. So I could see another team maybe giving him a shot for a year, maybe a team that's not in contention. But what Raj and I both agreed on with him is Mac needs that great system kind of route. That's how he was at Bama in that last year. Had a Heisman Trophy winner at wide receiver, had a guy at running back who finished fifth in the Heisman voting. Great line, good defense. So that's where Mac thrives. Mac is one of those guys where like you draw up a play, he could tell you where the first read is supposed to be, like, perfectly. If that guy's there, he could tell you where the second read's supposed to be. He can tell you where the third read's supposed to be. It's not going to scramble for. I saw Mac Jones almost hurt himself on a slide several times. Not an athletic guy. He's definitely a pocket guy, but he knows how the play is supposed to be. But he needs that talent around. Let's just be honest. New England in the Tom Brady era, outside of what like Randy Moss just decided, we're going to give you a lot of number 3 wide receivers and you just make it work. That's not Mac Jones, and the fact that New England
give him an awesome offensive line though.
Yeah.
Because it's not like Brady was getting lit up back there. Like he had a good offensive line.
Right. He did, but I don't think the play calling. And let's be fair here. Mac looked really bad at times. Yeah. There were times where his demeanor, his attitude, and some of his decision making was not good. So you can't attribute everything to what's going on around him, but a clean break is definitely needed from New England. I'm just not sure, if I can trade like a 6th rounder for Mac and give him a tryout for a year, maybe that's somewhere, that I go with but it's like looking around what teams are, you're gonna have to see how the draft shakes out first and who reaches for one, quarterbacks before you say where Mac ends up.
Yeah.
So in your mind, you feel as though he still has the ability to start somewhere in the league.
Yeah, we're about to enter his 5th year. I think it's just a little too early to give up on him. I'd get him into a better situation. The problem is the teams that can really afford to trade for a pick, like, aren't necessarily going to start him this next year, So I don't know what happens to him in that one. So maybe you keep him as a very capable backup for a minute and see. But, like, look what happened to Trey Lance. He got traded to backup. We never saw the light of day. So
Yeah,
I know it's a tricky situation, especially considering the quarterback draft is pretty deep, this year.
Well, that's what I was going to say is like, if you look at the teams that could use him, right? Because it's not like he's an upper echelon quarterback, right? He came in his draft class. He was the most ready to go of his draft class, but he had the lowest ceiling athletically of his draft class also. So he was closer to where he was going to evolve to, which is great for year one, right? But the problem is he isn't necessarily getting better. Now, he didn't have a lot of help either, right? Like, he didn't have great receivers. He didn't have a good offensive line. He had a pair of coordinators calling plays. And, so all of that isn't a recipe for success. Right. But when you look at the teams that he would be an upgrade for, they also have a high draft pick in a QB class that's deep. Right?
Okay. So
you're talking about at least like 6 of them that you're thinking almost could make it to the first round. So you're eliminating a lot of the teams, and then you look at the teams where he would actually fit is like a San Francisco, like a Cincinnati, teams with like lots of weapons. Those guys aren't, getting rid of who's there. Detroit would be an interesting option as a backup, but they just drafted, a backup that hasn't come out there and played yet. So they still got to see what they already have. But I'm thinking about the teams with a great structure around them, good line, great weapons. They've already got somebody,
Well, and a team like that could potentially use him. There's other guys they'll go get. Like Atlanta has some things. Mac Jones probably isn't your first guy. Like, they're probably going to make a real stab at Kirk Cousins.
So here's the thing. It feels like we're spoiled a little bit. Because we see a quarterback that can be a pocket passer and move to, we get giggly like little school children. Lamar Jackson, we saw him running more than he was passing early on, and we just hated it. Like, oh man, you're gonna get crushed out there. Now he's showing the pocket passer that we all thought he can be. Mixed with that, and it's like, oh yeah, this is like the prototype of what we want, but I don't know if that's a fair assessment. Hold on. I ain't sure that's a fair assessment for all quarterbacks though, because Mac Jones, maybe he's not that guy. Maybe he is just a pocket passer. Maybe that used to matter a few years ago, or a handful of years, probably more than 5 years ago. That used to matter. When you were just a pocket passer, that's what you did. You wouldn't worry about you running and getting hurt. You were a pocket passer, give him the right protection, and he'll carve you up. Maybe that's what he's supposed to be. But it's like so much more seems to be expected of quarterbacks nowadays. It's like, oh man, Mac Jones don't fit into that mold. So what do? You can't just toss him out, right? Like I was saying earlier. Is that a fair assessment that he's a pocket passer and maybe not the other part? And then we need to a team, 100%. Potential team should develop that. Is that right?
No, he's 100% a pocket passer. What that means, like, there's nothing wrong with that. You can win with that style still.
I agree.
No, but you have to have a good offensive line.
Right. I agree.
And some weapons around you too. That's the other thing.
Yeah, you got to have some weapons. You got to be able to get through your progressions, and you need an offensive line. The problem is he didn't have a good offensive line, and where he would likely go also probably won't have a good offensive line. So, I mean, there's that challenge to it, and so he needs more athleticism than he has because he's not going to be in a great situation.
Right.
So it's not like he's going to get brought into a team that is stacked because those teams already have a quarterback, right? That's so there's no team out there that has a great defense, great offensive line, awesome weapons, and they're just like, oh, quarterback, yeah, we forgot about that. Like, those aren't the teams that are out there. The teams that are out there are either they're bad, and they're bad across the roster. They're the Panthers, right? They have a quarterback, and that's it. Or it's a team that's a total rebuild, like a Washington, or, it's any of the teams that there's a lot of weapons, like a San Fran or, the Eagles, or like they have their quarterback figured out. I mean, even if you look at the Seahawks, like Mac Jones isn't an upgrade from Geno, right? Like it's kind of 50, like, it'd be a toss up.
Yeah. Especially also considering you have to trade for him too, as well, to get him for this next year. Even if it's a low round draft pick, you're like, could I not draft somebody that maybe gets me further along and also kind of say, okay, I've got him on a rookie contract for 4 years versus you trade for Mac right now, you've got a year to make a decision. before what am I going to do? Or do I just roll with my situation for a year, max on the free, he's a free agent, and then maybe I do my due diligence on him. So I just think the timing is bad.
Are you trading for that guy? Because Mac Jones is that caliber of player, like a Gardner Minshew, a Baker Mayfield, like he's that caliber quarterback. So like you're not.
I wasn't comfortable with those comparisons. I don't know.
Yeah.
I am a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
I am.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen anything that makes me think that he's anything more than that. Like we've seen him do the exact same types of gameplay. So it's just
my problem is I'm biased on this because I saw the best of Mac Jones. I saw him with one of the best offensive coordinators, one of the best lines, one of the best, skill positions.
Well,
like when's the last time you saw a college team with a Heisman first, third, and fifth? You just don't see things like that. So
but the problem with that is when you have that many, then you have to wonder who really is who really is the star there. Right. But yes, I agree 100%. He can have a ton of success if he has weapons and an elite offensive line. But the other problem we run into is we've watched offensive line play deteriorate over the years because you don't have OTAs. None of them play in preseason anymore. And if anybody needs OTAs in preseason, it's offensive line. Because they need to get their timing down. And most of those dudes are playing half of a game through the entire preseason. You're not really allowed to hit or do any game speed stuff in OTAs anymore. And so they're getting their first live reps, really week one, which is why we watched week one be absolutely horrendous when it came to gameplay. And that wasn't one team. That was across the league because no one's allowed to hit anymore. So they're doing all their live reps in real time. That's why week one was some of the sloppiest football we've watched in a decade.
Yeah. Ironically, I think that was Mac Jones' best game. Was like week one, and then it just
that game against the Eagles was his best game.
Yeah,
whatever week that was, that's the one I can't get off.
I think wasn't that week one? Didn't they open up?
I'm not sure, but he carved them boys up. I thought it was like about 500 yards that he threw for. He was throwing a lot. He carved them up. And it was like, and it was his decision making. The thing that we're talking about. It was excellent. It was sharp. He read the coverage quickly, got the ball out of his hands. He was carving them up. I'm like, where's that guy at? That's the guy that Herbert Wild be talking about. Where's he at?
Yeah. Week one, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, 35 for 54, 25-20 loss to the Eagles. So
he threw 54 times, but
that's
beside the point. But I mean, he carved them up. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
And he still lost.
Like I said, in the right way. And that's why I said I'm definitely biased because I also saw, Max sat for 3 years. So he was definitely in the system, got to know the play. It was just, we had seen glimpses a year before when Tua got hurt. So we knew that he had talent, but the situation around him just has to be good. And he's just kind of, there's a lot of things that are working against him right now. The drafts, the team he goes to, this is his last year. It's just a lot that's going to affect him this next year.
Yeah, he's probably going to be the guy that comes in as a backup and then maybe takes the starting job in some way. That probably hit the best case scenario for him. I said good morning to some folks. Good morning, Mom. He's in the house.
Yeah, that's the thing. I could see maybe the Saints taking a flyer on him.
Your mother's here. Be nice. Say good morning back.
Good morning back.
I did. I just didn't want to, you were talking, so I just waited.
Yeah. All right, Roger's in the house. Good morning to the host of that Monday Thing podcast. I'm not taking him to that Monday thing. I just think it's not.
That's kind of catchy, man. It is kind of catchy,
but I don't know. The laughing emoji makes me not want to do it just because somebody finds it humorous. So it's like that's not what we're going for. But Raj, while you're out there, brother, be getting ready for the Dolphins question, man. We want to hear from you guys or hear from you in regards to Ogba and Howard and what the Dolphins are doing in the offseason. So
he said, let him get to work. He said, let him get to work, and he will send those in for you.
Facts. I love it. All right, but anything else on Mac Jones? I don't know where else we go from there, but I just kind of feel like some of that stuff was a bad break to me. Yeah. I don't feel like he's a bum. I've seen guys that started last year that were like way, way worse in my opinion. So it's like I hope he gets a good shot. Like you said, with a competent O line. It don't have to be guys. Quarterbacks have thrived with an O line that wasn't elite. You don't have to have that. At least some kind of competency back there. Mac Jones can do well in that situation, I believe. I love to see it play out. I want to just talk about it. Kind of want to see it.
Well, he had an okay offensive line. Like, it's not like they were bottom of the league. You got to remember, he took like 3 guards in the draft, so it's not like.
But Herb made a salient point though. Who was he throwing to?
Yeah,
that's what I think. A lot of drop passes during the Patriots season. Is that Mac's fault? But there's a lot of blame to go around, but it can't be all on him. That just ain't right.
Yeah. Well, I think the OC and the lack of skill positions were terrible on New England.
You bet it was, brother. On paper,
because they used all their draft capital on guards.
Yeah.
They did get a couple of kickers too.
Yeah. So, they were like, wide receiver. Nah, we're good.
All right.
Get a punter.
Yes.
I'm sure they used the draft pick on that too, but that just seemed to be like them to do something like that.
Yes.
But anyways, all right. So we were talking a little bit off and on about the NFL officiating, especially during the season. We were like so ticked off with some of the things that were game-changing plays because of the Z was making calls that nobody understood. It seemed as though Commissioner Goodell is thinking about using more technology, which you can't be shocked. We're in the world now where AI is everywhere now. People are talking and saying it's me, and it's an AI generated image, and it's not even the person talking. So like we were bound to it was bound to leak in the sports at some point in time. So here we are. But the league's talking about using they already employ a replay assistant, which I didn't know about. But a replay assistant that communicates with the referee during games. I don't know who and what that is, but they want to add an official, get some kind of sky judge, which I'm like, you might get a reasonably good vantage point from the sky. I mean, that's why they had the boxes for the coordinators to sit in to see the field of play. But I don't know how the sky judge thing they're gonna probably do they're sending replays to New York to look at. Now you're gonna have a sky judge that looks at live video and replays as if they were on the field. I'm trying to figure out, okay.
So they use that slide cam that goes above the action. That was actually something that was tried out in the AAF for that 1 year they were around before they went bankrupt. So there were a couple of things that were kind of neat that came out of that league, and that was one of them. Is they used that extra official that basically was that slide cam that goes over the field. So it's not like they're way above. Like that camera's actually not that far away.
Well, they want to actually create that situation, according to what Goodell in the report is saying. They want to have that kind of situation. Educate me a little bit because I'm maybe it could be analyzing a little bit too much, but they send plays to New York. Sure. They got guys on the field who are in charge of this. Then you have the replay system that I didn't know even existed. Yeah, now you're talking about a sky judge. How is all this stuff going to work together, or even does it work together? Does one replace the other? Are we not sending plays to New York anymore? Now is the sky judge going to be the ultimate authority? What's going to happen?
I thought the replay assistant was like, I'm looking at stuff in real time and I'm gonna buzz you if you need to stop this play that just happened versus like we're sending it. I don't know
what their role. I don't know what their role is. They just communicate with the referee during the games. And
I think the replay assistant is to try to not slow down the gameplay unless it absolutely necessarily has to be.
That's one of those reviewable calls.
Yeah.
That's your replay assistant, right?
So who's reviewing it?
The replay
New York. The replay assistant?
Yeah.
No. The replay assistant. But the replay assistant doesn't have authority. They will just say, hey, you need to look at that play. Stop the play to look at it. I'm looking at it really quickly. There's definitely something there. I'm not making a judgment on it. I need you to look at it. So they'll buzz them down and tell them to stop the play and go look at that.
So that'd be like on a scoring play that's under review or something like that. A lot of times that is hit by that assistant.
Right.
Then it goes down to the ref and New York to make a decision from there. The sky judges would literally be an extra referee. And that's all they do is they watch the sky cam. And so it's a different position. So they do work together. Again, it's something they tried in the AAF and had success. And of course, it's not like they have to do much else than they already do because they already have the equipment in place. They already employ those cameras. Right. So you're just adding one more ref to a game.
Yeah. The replay assistant is just your little brother who goes and tells on you and tells mom and dad about it. And then they come
100%.
in and actually check it out.
That's fair.
And the sky judge, that ref still has to defer to the umpire on the field. So they don't actually get to make any decisions. They still have to confer with the white hat downstairs. Yeah. Like that guy gets the say at the end.
Yeah. I think the goal is to not interrupt the gameplay unless they absolutely think, okay, this was important enough to do.
Exactly.
So if they look at it, they'll glance at it and go, they let it go. But if they go, okay, there's something there, they stop it. And I got a point on this too, real quick. Sorry, I know this is not where you're going. But you look at, like, let's say maybe not even the whole playoffs, but even like the last 3 games, no one's talking about the officiating at all. You know, maybe we're talking about, there's a hold call missed here or there, but it seemed like once they put their best officials and put their best foot forward, the playoffs were relatively like decided on the field and bad coaching more than bad officiating.
Well, and they kind of let them play, right? So, which is indicative of playoff football anyway, right? Like they start to swallow their whistles a little bit. They let them battle it out a little more than they do during the regular season. So, I mean, that always helps with playoff football too, is you're watching that. Now, there were instances that seemed a little bit too loose, like KC not getting a holding call in basically the entire playoffs seems a little unlikely, especially since we watched them, hold a lot.
Right.
So, not to say that that's why they won. So let's not get crazy with it. But I found it interesting that they basically just didn't get any holding calls. That seemed weird.
Yeah, I like I'm a techie. So I like technology just by nature, but I feel like we're going into that slippery slope area.
Yeah,
I listen to everything you guys are saying. It's like there's a lot of chiefs in the kitchen right now, and it's like, okay, and you're talking about in the sky judge, and now you're talking about potentially adding chips on the football and chips on the shoulder pads to kind of assist.
Chips on football.
Okay, how is it helping? The whole idea would be to fix all the calls, not to fix some of them, right? Or is it to fix as many as possible? According to the report, this is not me because I'm not an expert. Maybe you know more than I do. That's fine. But the replay system is supposed to be fixing all the calls. That's the idea or the point of the report. That's what it's supposed to do, but it's not doing that. So it's like adding a sky judge. Does it help that happen now? I mean, I don't know if we get away from the inevitable fact that somebody has to decide stuff. And it can't be a computer. It can't be a chip. It can't be technology. Somebody has to actually decide stuff. Yeah, just like a person puts the information into a computer to put out information. This is going to come down to that at some point. I mean, how do we avoid that? We can add all the technology we want, but I don't know. People complain about officiating last year more than I've heard in quite a while. As a matter of fact, I don't think
they were missed calls. But I mean, that sky judge is still a person. Like they're just watching a camera. So, I mean, it's just an extra set of eyes on it that might see something that somebody that's on the field may not see because there's someone directly in their way. So, in theory, yeah, you would correct some calls that you otherwise miss. But, the chips that are already in helmets and already in the ball, those are all for the advanced statistics. That's what all of that's for. So, when you see all those crazy AWS stats, a lot of that is because of the chip and stuff that's in the ball. So, okay. I mean, they're already using that stuff for analytics, but they're not deciding games with it. It's just more information. And same with the sky judge. Like it's just a guy watching a camera from a different vantage point. So will it correct some calls? Sure. Are they still going to miss calls? Of course, it's people, right? Like you're going to miss calls. Just it's part of the game. It's never going to be perfect. So I think if they're trying to bill it as, it's going to make the game perfect. Well, I mean, they're just bold-faced lying to you. But would it make it better? Sure, because think about when you go to a game, right? And you're sitting down low, 100 section, 50-yard line. There's only so much you can see. You can actually see better in the 300 section, right? Like you can watch more of the game completely, right? So when you're on the field, like you can see your spot around you. That's why there's so many judges on the field already, right? Like you got line judges, sideline judges, your main umpire. Like you have all of these guys because you can't actually really see all of the field all at once. Like you just can't do it. So having that upper vantage point does give you a different perspective. And a lot of times you can see stuff. So like when you're watching on TV, you'll see a guy holding that doesn't get called. And you're just like, holding, that should be a flag. Well, the guys on the field couldn't see him because there was someone in their way. The sky judge would see that. So potentially they can get a call right. Again, it's not going to be perfect.
It's not perfect now. Like I said, people been complaining about officiating the entire season. I don't know how we can forget that.
It's not to try and make it better.
It's been okay. Were you pleased with the officiating? I mean, it had chips in the football, like you already said. So were you pleased with the officiating this past season? Were you happy with it based on last year?
Doesn't have anything to do with officiating.
Okay. Were you happy with the officiating?
No, but like I said, it's just an extra set of eyes. Like they can get called. Like I get that you hate whatever's happening, but
no.
Yeah.
I don't hate any part of this except the fact that I feel like I like something to be a little bit more simple. And now we got all the extra added layers. It's like the officiating doesn't seem to be getting better, but you're adding more layers. I'm just looking at the way it is. I'm like, if you add more layers and it's not getting better, why are you doing that? Do something else.
So
that's my only point in all of this stuff. You guys,
officiating overall is getting better. They just happen to have 22 cameras on it, so you can see every missed call now. It used to be you had the broadcast angle, and you didn't know if calls were missed at all. So, I mean, now you have all 22, and yeah, you can see tons of missed calls. So, I mean, I think the extra set of eyes wouldn't be terrible. It's not like it's gonna. I don't know. Like I'm not sure what you're searching for there, but it's not like AI is taking the game over. It's still an actual person. It's just using the technology that's already on the field.
Yeah, no, I think you've educated us, man. I didn't know what the sky judge. The report doesn't kind of you said that extra official. I'm like, okay, I don't understand that part.
I only knew because I watched the AAF for that year that it was there. Because they were like, oh, yeah, we want to try out some different rules. Because they were also the one that was trying to get, they're trying out the no kicking game type of stuff. So, I mean, there were elements that they did that the league took a lot of interest in. Okay. So, yeah.
That's fair. Herb, any thoughts on the officiating or the whole replay assistant deal, the future of officiating with technology? Any thoughts on this?
No, I think the end of it's still going to come down to the human element. So like you said, you're going to just have some stuff that gets missed. And if people want a perfect game, they have to realize how slow that game's going to be if we're going to send everything into computers and analyze everything. So I think at some point people are going to realize some calls are just going to get missed, Yeah. So, especially here in college, I feel like the home field advantage is huge. So I feel like when you travel, you just expect to get screwed a little bit. That's just how it goes. That's how I approach every year. Like you just have to come, you have to get over that. So
honestly, man, we watch the replays and stuff. It's like, this is just me personally. I love sports my entire life, and that's pretty literal. I was clapping in the womb for stuff. I watch replays. I see stuff that nobody doesn't call. I'm like, I don't want them to call everything because holding happens on every play probably. And it's like, I don't want to.
Right.
There's tripping, all kinds of that nobody ever catches because it's happening away from the ball. Nobody's paying any mind. The illegal crackbacks and all that stuff happens away from the ball a lot of the time. You don't even see it. I was going to call everything that happened. You know what a nightmare that'd be? What a cluster that would be if you called 4, 5, 6 plays. 4, 5, 6 calls every play. That game would never end. It'd be going on forever. So I'm not talking about that. I'm just kind of trying to figure out if more of these layers actually helps and it's something that we can quantify. Can we see it? No, I don't mean call every play. That's just stupidity. You can't call every play, but is it helping? Does it change something? Because this is, like I said, last year, I felt like I heard more complaints than I ever had before. It could be hyperbole, but it felt like I heard more complaints than ever. And I'm like, most of these guys are part-timers. We talked about it. These guys are CEOs and all kind of other stuff on their day job. They're not even full-time officials. That could be part of the problem. Like you said, the guys in the playoffs, they did fantastic. Nobody made any complaints because they were the full-time, experienced veteran guys, whatever how you want to describe them. So that could play a part too. But now we're starting to add all these different layers. I'm like, man, how many eyes do you need? And what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to go for 100%? Because that's not happening. So what's the goal for adding all these extra layers to it? That's really my only point. I apologize for not making it clear the first time, but that's all I was talking about. Any other thoughts about
I think the added vantage point is helpful because, again, they just get a different perspective on the ball. But I mean, it's still going to come down to the human element. And the biggest thing is like, I don't care if you're calling a game tight or you're calling it loose, but as long as you call it the same way all day, that's really all I care about. Like, if the calls go both ways, hey, you do you. Like, I'm good with a loose game where there's hand checking and people don't care. Or if you're calling it tight, just make sure you call it tight all the way around. And you set that precedent at the beginning of the game, right? Because then the players can adjust to that. Right. Because there's some refs that, if you are hand checking, that's going to be, illegal contact. And some of them don't care about it. So as long as you know what that precedent is at the jump and it's the same all day, the players don't care. They'll adjust to whatever it is. But I mean, because week to week, will it be a little bit annoying? Sure, but it's that way anyway. But it's when it's within the game that it's a problem. Kind of like that offensive offsides that Tony got, right? Their gripe on that game. Now he was wildly offsides. So let's not pretend like he didn't actually cause a problem, but he was also offsides multiple other times that game. That was the only time they called it. So, I mean, if you're going to call it, it's fine.
Right.
But call it the same all day.
Right. Don't wait till a key moment.
Exactly. Don't let it be a game-changing moment. Call it tight at the beginning. Be like, hey, you're offsides, right? Because then he's going to be able to adjust. Now, if he adjusts or doesn't, that who knows? But it at least gives him that opportunity to be like, oh, I'm offsides. So it's that type of stuff that creates a lot of problems, a lot of distaste for how games are called. Isn't necessarily what they're calling; it's how inconsistent the calls were.
Right.
Fair. Let's jump into the NCAA college football playoffs. I've been holding on to it for several weeks, and I want to kind of try to jump into it as much as we can with the time that we have. There's so many layers to this. I don't even know where to start. So just pull from the whole basket of whatever this thing is that we got going on here. They heard about the expansion from 4 to 12 teams. We knew about that going into the 2024 season. I think they finally went with some 5 and 7 models. I think you guys already heard about that already. So there's 5 that are going to be in, I guess 7 that'll be like they work their way in, whatever it is. Yep. Now with the Big Ten and with the SEC, they got. I was excited about it initially. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I didn't like to see other conferences dissolved. I was kind of sad because they got 100 years of history on them. This team kind of just disappeared like that. That didn't feel good for a college football fan. Anyway, everybody else probably doesn't even care, but we do. But between the SEC and the Big Ten, they got 34 schools combined, 16 in the SEC and 18 in the Big Ten. I'm like, wow, I'm talking about super conferences. So like everybody else almost gets feel like squeezed out. So now they got some issues with the demands that they're making. They want guaranteed voting rights and revenue distribution beyond 2025 and some other stuff. And the NCAA wasn't hearing that, so they kind of had an impasse with some of that. I haven't heard anything recent, so I guess it's still on the table. And that's what they're dealing with. But it seems to be an implication that these two schools, which is the two wealthiest conferences, could try to make a power move. I'm like, really, what does that even look like? Where I guess if they don't get the key issues they want dealt with, do you leave? What's happening? So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with all of that stuff. And then you got the NIL situation too. They just closed the portal the other day, so that's good. I guess you got who you got for a while. I don't know when it opens back up again and all the demons come out.
Like a month and a half.
Back up
spring? Yeah. That's ludicrous, really?
Oh, yeah. So basically, right after your spring game, and I think Alabama maybe have one of the later ones because I know for us last year it was like a week after the spring game was the portal was still open. Somebody just declared. I want to say like somebody from Michigan just I guess sent out the note that he's going to enter the portal. So the portal's not closed. You still have until the end of spring. You basically have a
few guys. I just don't remember who you're talking about. But I heard a couple.
And then there's still opportunity once the season starts.
Yeah,
this is brutal.
Yeah.
I can't help but think about poor Brock Purdy. I say poor because man making $875. I mean, I know for us that's like, wow, we could change our life for $875 a year. Our lives dramatically change. Matter of fact, almost everything changes. You ain't got no bills. You know what I'm saying? Upgrade your podcast equipment. You probably don't have to work a regular job or side jobs or side hustles. $875 probably fixes that for you. And he just came out of a Super Bowl. He's making that. These guys in NIL or through the NIL are making $1-2 million. I'm like, wow. So this is like, I digress. The college football playoff situation with the SEC and the Big Ten and this whole situation with this potential power move and contracts expiring. What do you guys think about that? I know you guys are college football close to your heart, and you got a lot of have some mixed feelings about a lot of this stuff. What are you guys thinking about the whole expansion and this contract stuff and just everything that's going on with college football? What are you guys thinking?
I still think 12 is too many, and I think all of this is too late. I think if they had 6 for the last 2 or 3 years, well, if you get when the Pac-12 was still down, if they had 6, if they had 5, and maybe your highest ranked either other team or highest ranked conference champion, which that would have been a fight. You guys can fight over 6. But I feel like if you'd given all your conferences access to it early on, I feel like the Pac-12 would probably still be around because there'd be a little bit more to show for it. And then maybe if they hadn't gotten as greedy, but that's a whole other point. But I think 6 would have been the perfect number, and that's what they should have gone with. So I think jumping to 12 is kind of funny, and you're still going to have a fight over that 5th team because the way it's worded, it's the 5th, conference champion, highest ranked conference champion. So like whoever Mountain West, Matt, whoever it is that wins their conference. So now you're basically like, let's say the Big Ten and SEC somehow come in there with their 2, no loss versus 1 loss team, and they win. That team that loses that conference championship is going to drop behind the team who you're like, are you really taking, a Georgia or like a Texas? Are you really making them travel to like Liberty for a game, just because they won the conference? So that part's going to be interesting. But, I feel like it was too much and then probably also too late at the same time.
So here's a fun fact for you. Just because you said 12 is too much already, 2026, it moves to 14.
Yeah, I don't like, are we thinking, and the problem is they're thinking of it like NCAA basketball, and they're like number 13 and 14, they've got a shot. No, that's just more basketball that, you kind of get on the rhythm and get hot. I just don't see the number 14 ranked team.
I think they're just trying to make all the bowl games matter because the bowl games haven't mattered in a long time.
Right. So
now all of a sudden the bowl games are your divisional games, right?
That
so
feels
now
like it's really easy. It's right there. That's low hanging fruit for real. I'm like, I'm with you. I'm like, it had to be about the bowl games mattering because the Snickers bowl game is like, that's not drawing people in,
No.
It just,
what? You didn't like the Pop-Tart dancing on a toaster?
It's not. Yeah, I mean, the Pop-Tart bowls, like, really? And then a little Pop-Tart person walks out there.
And the problem is I remember more about the mascot than I do about the game.
Yeah, I remember who played the Pop-Tart game.
I actually couldn't even tell you who played in it.
No. I didn't want to say that because I thought maybe one of y'all did. No, I don't remember it all. So.
I think the Pop-Tart with blueberry, that's what the fucking way to tell you. I mean, other than that, I don't know.
And I know they dunked the mayo guy in mayo, and they do.
That was.
Oh yeah.
I think mayonnaise is disgusting, so that was
super
hard
gross.
for me.
Yes,
but yeah, but I mean, I think Bo's right, man. The bowl games is probably what this is about. It's about money, pure and simple. Because 14, that's hard to fathom. I mean, I don't know how we're gonna do 12. We're gonna find out.
So the thing that's funny now, though, right, is you become eligible for these bowl games, whatever. So in theory, whoever your national champ is going to sweep the bowl games, right? Because now instead of having one bowl game that you're like, oh, I won this bowl game, and you got the trophy, right? Now you can be like, oh, I won this bowl game, and then I went and won this bowl game. You can get a collection of trophies before you go for that national title.
Yeah. I don't.
So
like
in theory, these guys are playing more football too, then, right?
Right.
If you're adding more teams, you got to play more football. So I mean, I felt like last year
I would bet money there's a bye week somewhere in there for the top 2 schools or something.
It's like the top 5 at least get buys. So
I saw the diagram.
It's not a true tournament.
5. I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw
the top 5 get buys, or maybe it's the top 6 because you have to have 6 games. So when it was 6 and 6, I knew that I thought the top 6 definitely had bias, but now I have to look at what the 5 and 7 is. But you get a bye if you're one of those top teams. Yeah. But look at this scenario. Like
the number I saw smaller than. I'm just talking to each other. Go ahead, man. Sorry.
No. You're the host. My bad.
I saw a diagram, but 6 wasn't what I saw. So let's verify that. The number was smaller than that. I thought
it'd have to be at least 4.
I thought that's what it was, but if it's 6, I'm like, I'd be really shocked. Like 6.
Well, I think I was thinking 6 when it was 6 and 6. So I haven't really looked at the.
No, it wasn't that. There were fewer. There were fewer that got a bye, but originally it was supposed to be 6 and 6 as far as conference champs, and then the teams that played in. But not all 6 got bye weeks.
Oh well,
yeah. So it's the top 4.
Okay. That makes a little bit more sense to me. So how do you feel about this whole deal with the 2 wealthiest conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten? It's like, I don't know what this power move is all about. What they would actually do if they don't get their way. What happens? Do they just leave? Do they go independent? I don't know what happens with that. I'm not privy to that kind of stuff. But what are you thinking about just the whole setup? With now you got one conference that can't be the Big Ten anymore because you got like 16 teams in your. Or 18 teams and then the SEC has 16. Like, is it just good to you guys? Do you like it increases the competition? Does it make things better, or does it? What's happening? I feel like I made a mistake.
I think the important thing to remember here is the college football playoff isn't part of the NCAA, right? And that's something that was abundantly clear with the Michigan thing, right? Because there were talks about Harbaugh getting suspended, right? And the college football playoff said that's an NCAA issue. That's not our problem. Right. Okay. So even if there was an NCAA sanction or, whatever, college football was like, that's not our problem. They're their own entity. So if one of those conferences or both those conferences decide to team up and leave, that's a lot of the big schools. NCAA would be hurt a lot by that. So I think they do hold a lot of cards when it comes to negotiating, because they can be like, look, we're going to remove 34 schools. And a lot of them are top tier schools. Do you really want, is the NCAA going to be willing to do that? That's a lot of money they're going to lose. So I'm going to imagine that they'll be far more likely to negotiate now that they're essentially super conferences, like you said, than they were before, right? Because when it's the NCAA versus a 10-school conference, they probably don't care. They're like, sure, you can try and do it on your own. You have 2 real prominent schools. The rest of them aren't huge football schools. Yeah, best of luck. But now you have 2 conferences that have, 15 pretty good schools when it comes to football, right? Like, it's not like they're bottom tier schools. Like, these are potential national championship caliber schools. So now all of a sudden NCAA does have to come to the table with a little bit more of an open mind, because if they leave, the college football playoff still happens, because like they said, that's an NCAA problem, not our problem. So college football playoff would still happen.
This is a weird situation. I don't have all the reports in front of me or anything, so I can't. Maybe I can lean on you guys to help me out with that. But it seems like one of the biggest sticking points is about name, image, and likeness. Sure. That's what these conferences seem to be fighting for. I'm like, that's the big thing that you want to that's the hill you want to die on. Is that? It's weird to me, because I know, but I don't know.
I mean, that's always the.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm concerned about the future. When I just step back, I'm like I said, I'm this guy. I don't know everything. I'm not an expert. I'm not even a talking head. I can't even call myself that. But it's like I'm just sitting back looking at this like, wow, I love college football. It's like I don't know what you're becoming. I mean, it's one thing we know when the girl changes her hair color, she starts getting piercings, she starts changing the color that she normally wears. She doesn't wear the colors anymore. It starts making you think like, wow, you're changing a lot. I almost don't recognize you. That's kind of what's happening here. Now we're talking about 12 games. They're talking about 14 potentially coming up. And it's like these guys are like talking about NIL stuff, name, image, and likeness. Is like, okay, I want the students to not be broke and have to live off ramen. I mean, I want them to have something, but my God, where are we going with this? Because now we talk about these 2 wealthy conferences that can just potentially for a power move and just remove themselves from this. I'm like, it's a lot. But I mean,
so the thing is it's pro sports, but it's been pro sports for a long time. It's just the workers weren't actually getting compensated. That's really the only difference. Because all these schools are solely motivated by money. I mean, it's why the Pac-12 collapsed, because they got greedy for a TV contract.
Yep.
Otherwise, that conference would still be around. But they're like, no, we're not. We don't want 27 million. We want 35 million, and no one would pick it up. And then ultimately, it got to the end where the schools are like, hey, we don't have anything on the horizon. We're out. Right. And so, as much as tradition is nice to say, a lot of that had been going away for a long time.
Yeah. Because remember, like USC and UCLA, when they were leaving, that was like, okay, we only have 1 year left in this conference anyway, and nobody's doing anything. So it's not like, like Oklahoma and Texas, where they left with multiple years. They were like, look, we gave this until the very end, and nothing's going on. We're out. So I don't know. It's headed to it. I heard your comment there, Bo, about the NFL. It's almost like you're going to have the Big Ten, and they're going to grab a couple more teams, and they're going to have like 4 divisions, and the SEC is going to grab a couple more, and they'll have like 4 divisions, and we'll just have a playoff between the SEC and Big Ten, which as an SEC fan still, I would hate. I hate the Pac-12's not here. I hate that the Big 12 is weakened now this year. Like I would rather, like I said, I'd rather have gone back, had everyone had access. Everyone's conference champion should have been in the playoff. Going to 4 was just stupid. Your conference has to mean something. I don't care if you win your conference and you're a 2-loss team. If you won your conference, that means something to me still.
And how are you going to have 4 spots for 5
right.
or 5 setup? Like,
right.
Like what genius came up with that math? You guys are all college people.
Yeah. I guarantee you what they said was, as long as we don't make the Big Ten and SEC mad, we can survive the rest. I guarantee you that's how that happened. And so they were like, oh, 4 is fine. Because they're like, oh, we don't want them to play more games. Well, guess what? The kids are making millions now. So if they get an extra game in there, I think everyone will be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
like you never see the NFL do that. They're not like, oh, we got to have them less games. No, I mean, they give you less preseason games. But, the kids are pretty much professionals at this point. So it's time to they should have made the playoffs right before this, but what they did was accelerate everything at the same time. Let's throw NIL and expand the playoffs and do all this all at the same time. And
the NIL is they just like unleashed it.
Yes.
And didn't have any way to like monitor or limit.
Right.
So they're just like, oh, let's just open this powder keg and dance with matches and hope nothing happens.
Yes.
Like
something is happening.
And then they threw the transfer portal and then go, oh, that's not water. Like, oh
my God, it's gas.
So they were just, I mean,
I totally missed the smell of this.
Yeah.
It's ugly. I think we got more time to work on it heading into the college football season, but man, I'm not enthusiastic. Let's say good morning to see Hammy, brother. Thanks for reaching out, man. We appreciate you being on the show today, man.
Definitely.
And getting your opinion out here, man. That's what you're talking about. This is a business. As we were talking about, it's a money grab, and eventually only 5 or 6 teams really matter, is one of his previous comments, and have a shot year in and year out. Apparently, according to Twitter, Michigan's going to be under the top 10 and out of the top 10 this year. So, okay, great. All right, whatever. I ain't mad. But let's talk a little NFL. We had some discussion about, guys getting cut, candidates getting cut, and some interesting names out here to discuss. I want to drop a couple of comments real quick first before we do that. But okay, Trav, what's up, man? Good morning. Thanks for joining us, man. Here's his comment. This was always going to be an issue when the NCAA tried to turn a regional sport into a national sport. There was truly never a real national champion. Mm-hmm. If only they would have embraced the D2 playoff model up front.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, I mean, that was always my thing about it. It's like you have a true playoff in every other level of football. Pee-wee to pro, except D1. And D2 has a functional playoff system. Right. So that's why I always laughed when the NCAA is like, oh, it'll never work. I'm like, what are you talking about? It literally only doesn't work in your model, and it doesn't work how you have it.
Yeah. Look at how the NCAA has done it, though. First, you had a split national champion because everyone played different bowl games, and then you just voted.
Exactly.
And then in their wisdom, they said, all right, let's just pick the 2 best teams and have that. I was like, the 2? Like after playing the whole season? Like it doesn't make any sense. It's okay, we'll double the number and go to 4. How about that, guys? I'm like, who's in charge here?
Yeah.
This is how you're doing it? And what they did was they would say, it's better than what we had. That doesn't mean it's great. I mean, okay.
The math wasn't mathing.
No.
That's a conversation for another day, because I don't know if what we have now is going to be better than what we had last year. And last year, people were uptight, to say the least. I don't know.
This will be better. This will definitely be better.
Okay. In what regard?
Well, because the person that's the 13th school, right? That 4-loss school that might get in, 3-loss school probably, right? Can you make an argument? Sure. But you don't have a good argument.
No.
Like this time around, you had an undefeated team that was winning with a backup quarterback to remain undefeated. And you hold them out for a couple of 1-loss teams. They have a real gripe, right?
Yep.
But if you're the 13th school that didn't get into the top 12 and you're like, oh, but we beat them, but we have 3 losses. Like, well, you probably should have won another game then.
Yeah. So, like, look at your rankings this
if
year.
You're undefeated. You can't win more games.
Right. That's one aspect of things. That's one.
So your number 12 team this year would have been Oklahoma at 10-3, right? They actually would have missed out because whoever would have, I think it was Liberty, maybe would have jumped ahead of them as a conference champion.
Sure.
So Oklahoma misses out, the number 12th ranked team, 10-3, bad losses after Texas. They have no argument. Like you just can't say we should have been in. So they're like your first goal of like exactly what you're saying there is like they can't say I should have been in. So you lost every game that mattered after you beat Texas. That's on you.
Well, and even if you did try and say it, nobody's going to be buying it. They're like, well, okay, but you were still a 3-loss team. So maybe
I said that last season.
Maybe be a 2-loss team.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, the problem is
not going to stop.
This year, you have an undefeated team that's on the outside looking in, right? They have a real argument because you can't win more than all the games.
Yeah. Florida State versus Oklahoma is not a real argument. Like those are, they're not even on the same plane at all.
Exactly.
So, Florida State, great argument. Oklahoma, no argument.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So no, it'll be better. It'll be better.
Okay.
Will it be perfect? No, of course not. But
yeah, if the 13th team or the 12th team has an argument, we're not listening.
More football is going to be played, so that's better to me. But in regards to just the whole rankings thing, people are going to still complain about that. That's not going anywhere. I don't care how many teams they add. Even if they add 14, it's still going to be 15. Be like, man, we deserve to be in there. We got robbed.
No, because I look at who the teams there at the bottom are. No, your 13th, 14th, 15th ranked team was Oklahoma, LSU, and Arizona.
And ain't nobody get robbed at that point.
No.
Honestly, I don't know.
If you don't get in, you got robbed.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know if it even helps. Well, I have my issue about the NIL and the transfer portal. We talked about it already, but I don't know how it even helps overall because now you got people who are either jumping to the most popular teams, whatever it is, and you're sitting there getting used to them. They're going to go ahead and bounce. And people are like, okay, my team doesn't even look the same anymore because everybody left and went somewhere else. So it's like just nobody's growing. The idea of being homegrown seems to be a thing of the past now. You know what I'm saying? So like nobody's staying in, hanging in, and growing and growing into their legs. I think Arch Manning was a guy that comes to mind. He had a chance to do that same thing. He chose not to, which I think was a testament to his upbringing, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Because he had a chance to go ahead and bounce. So he said, no, I'm going to stay here in this situation and kind of grow in this. I thought Ewers came back too, I think.
Ewers came back.
Right, so
it was weird. He announced he was coming back, and then they officially announced it like a month later. It was really the timing of it was weird.
So that says a lot about managers. So, you know what? I'm going to stay here and grow and develop in this system. And it's like I know he's an outlier because most folks are trying to just go wherever they can go to get whatever they can get. So that's one thing I'm concerned about whether it's going to be better or not because I wonder about the product overall. If it's going to be a better product because people are moving around and chasing the dollar and whatever. It's like it kind of dilutes what I think kind of made college football special. But let's go ahead and move on. Roger's back in now, so I want to go ahead and grab that question about the Dolphins. Heard that they cut Emmanuel Ogba, their D-line guy, and Xavier Howard, their veteran DB. And I want to ask him, what's his thoughts on that? Because I know that's his team, and he had a high hope for him going into the season. And now they're making some cuts, I guess, in some areas that I feel like they need help in, but I didn't think that these guys were problems. I think it could be a contract related deal. So Raj dropped a comment for us. We're gonna go ahead and read it out. Raj, hope you're listening. We're gonna go ahead and talk about what you're saying. So Raj is saying I was a big fan of Xavier Howard and hope he stayed. Looks like we're gonna aim to get younger at secondary during the draft. Makes sense. Maybe get Wiggins from Clemson. Of course, I'll be pushing to get Kool-Aid. LOL. He didn't mention Agba at all. Do you not like Agba? Not quite sure what's happening there, but what are your thoughts on the Dolphins and the moves that they're making? I felt like, we all kind of felt like maybe they had a real legit shot to do something this time around. Maybe initially people said, it's going to be the Jets before Roger got hurt. So then all of a sudden the Dolphins became the de facto next man up, so to speak, because the Bills were just playing. They were on a roller coaster, put it like that. So we didn't know who they were going to be, how it was going to all come together. And now the Dolphins are, making cuts with some key people. So it feels like they're about to go young. Is that the move for them in this AFC East race, to kind of go young and not have established players? I mean, what are you thinking? Rod, you can jump into it if you get a chance to do so, brother. But what are you thinking, guys? Real quick.
I mean, to some degree, yeah, because it's not like their defense was awesome. So, I mean, they got to make some changes. You got to get cheaper and younger if you're going to compete, right? Because that's a tough division at this point. So if what you had didn't work, you couldn't close out games with the defense that you had. So, it makes sense to try and free up some space, get a little bit younger, and see if you can hit on some of those draft picks.
Yeah. And it seems like this draft is really pushed towards the offensive side of the ball. So I think if you do your work defensively, it's like you look at your contenders. I think them in Detroit are the biggest ones kind of looking for that push. So I feel like you're going to get some good players and have some good stuff fall to you. So okay. I think if you do your work, this strategy can work out very well.
Okay. I know it's early, but do you feel like this is the move for them to kind of start going younger at spots? You feel like this is what they need to kind of get over the proverbial hump going into next season?
The offense does fine, right?
Okay.
They have weapons. Tua's good enough. The offensive line gives him protection this year, right? So he was able to stay healthy, stay upright most of the time. So I'm not super concerned about the offensive side of the ball. So getting better on defense, maybe get a little bit better pass rush, get a little bit younger in the secondary. I think that would help that defense a lot. Because unfortunately, what they had just wasn't getting it done. And I mean, you got to make moves. And I don't think going and getting another veteran makes sense. So getting younger, saving some money for when you do have to sign some of these guys probably makes the most sense for them.
Agreed. And you're not like, when you, just to go along with that point, I don't, what offensive position would you draft if you were not going defense? It's not wide receiver, not quarterback, not running back, not tight end. I mean, it just, none of those other positions make sense either to be high on your draft board versus going defense first. So I think the cuts go along with your draft strategy. Okay.
I just thought it was interesting, especially with Otter, because he struggled at first coming over from Cleveland, I think it was. He struggled a little bit, but he bounced back, man, had 5.5 sacks. He was kind of on the move, on the come up, only 30 years old, but they saved $13.7 million. So it was definitely a cost-cutting measure. So they kind of got rid of a guy that was kind of, doing well for him and helping him out. So he wasn't some guy that was a deficiency, but I don't want to even make that even an implication at all. He wasn't that. He was actually pretty decent. With Howard, his contract situation that was a different situation. We're talking about 25 point something million dollars. It was different.
Yeah, and injuries. So neither one of those.
Well, definitely that, because he spent a lot of time on the sidelines over the past few years. But I want to go ahead and jump to the NFL cuts candidates. Some interesting names out here. I'm gonna go ahead and just name all of the, and then we can kind of talk about who you want to talk about. Some of these guys we actually discussed whether they can benefit of being cut or traded, etc., whatever it is. But here's some of the names we got. So we already talked about Xavier Howard. He had 3 years left on his contract. So they saved about $2.8 million, I guess. But they had Hunter Renfrow from the Raiders. Seahawks, Tyler Lockett, Bulls guy right there. Saints, Alvin Kamara. The Chargers pass rushers, Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. I got the numbers for all these guys that need to happen. Chargers, Mike Williams. Broncos, Russell Wilson, who said he definitely wants to come back. He loved that. Jimmy G, Las Vegas, and Nick Chubb with the Cleveland Browns. So I got the numbers for all that stuff. If you need to have that stuff, you don't have to go dig for it. I forgot about Jamal Adams. He's also out here too. Seahawks safety, Jamal Adams. So what's the most intriguing candidate in this list for you guys, or intriguing two candidates that jump out? I think Nick Chubb is a name that's like, wow. You wouldn't think that a guy, I guess you can be considered a generational running back, I guess. Yeah. He got some injuries going on and stuff too, but they're going to be almost $24 million over the cap. Yeah. So it'd be a shock, but his number is 15.8. So I think Andrew Berry, the GM, is like, there's an elephant in the room that we got to deal with. And I think it's about this option to, well, they had option to restructure the deal. I would think that that's probably going to be wise for him to do that. But Cleveland not known for doing wise things all the time. So I don't really know what's going to happen here. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, Chubb had 2 surgeries. Think about it as a business person. If you got somebody that barely comes to work, always injured all the time, you got to think about something like this person's hurting production. He had 2 surgeries to repair the meniscus, the MCL, and the ACL after week 2. Not even 2 weeks in starting the season, and he's 29 years old. So it's like, I mean, the fact that he never averaged under than 5 yards per catch since 2018 is awesome. But it's like, what do you do with this situation here? So that's just one little commentary. Who you guys think about? Who jumps out of that list? You mean to read it again, or you got it?
I think the one that is interesting to me is because of the 2-game suspension is Jimmy G. Because that's a guy that may have just found himself out of the league because of where some of these teams are headed. They have good enough draft class or draft position to go get a rookie, and Jimmy G could be a stopgap guy, except he's going to miss the first 2 games wherever he goes, which means you're going to have that rookie out there already. So are you going to put the rookie out there for 2 games and then bring him back and then put him back in later when Jimmy G struggles?
Or gets hurt again.
Yeah, right. So I mean, like he very well could have taken his last snap in the league based on this suspension alone.
You really believe that?
I actually kind of do. Like, I could see someone trying to take flyer on him as a backup, but I mean, even still, most of these teams don't necessarily need what he brings.
Right.
I don't even know what that is. We talked about it last week. I'm seriously, no joke, no shade either. I don't know what he brings.
He brings a win percentage. That's all he brings.
Yeah. Okay. Based on being on really good teams.
Yeah.
Okay. That ain't really about you though. I mean, so like, what do you bring to the table? I don't know. He's not an intriguing name. I'm like, whatever. No, he can go as like ain't gonna change nothing to me. Ain't gonna change nothing. Who else we got out there that kind of jumps out at you?
I think
Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, did that impact you at all? Did that kind of make your wheels start turning at all with those 2 guys?
What's that?
Bosa and Mack, because their money is, they got the highest cap hit probably in this entire list I just gave you, 38.5 and 36.6.
I mean,
oh my God, wow.
Like, I have to know I can't just get that kind of production, out of the draft or something before I'm like, if I'm trying to sign somebody that, that huge. So I could definitely see that.
I mean, you're talking about a couple of guys that are constantly in the conversation for defensive player of the year, though.
Right. True,
so it's not like you are some mid-level tier guy. Like, these are the upper echelon at their positions. They are constantly in the top 3 or 4 in defensive player of the year voting. Yeah, like that's tough to move off of.
Yeah. I feel like that's if you do that, a contender has to go for them, somebody not necessarily like who has cap room, but hey, this is like maybe our final piece to push us over the hump. Let's go ahead and spend and get it,
Yeah. I find myself in a weird spot because I know it's against the rules. I ain't supposed to like more than one NFL team. I've been told that on multiple occasions and how all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But for somebody that has an affinity for the Chargers, been watching them since mid-'80s. I have no idea why. No connection. Talked about it before in the show. I have no idea why. But I watch these people, and I watch Bosa, and he has a bit of an injury history. In regards to that, it's limited him to 14 appearances in 2 seasons, the last 2 seasons. That's not good when you're going to week 2 and you're already out for the season. That's not good. So I'm sure it's going to factor into this. I think Mac doesn't have a similar issue, but he's coming off a 17 sack season, so that does go well to his credit. But I think it's interesting situation to deal with as well, especially with a new regime coming in. And I don't know where Harbaugh's taking things, but to have that kind of talent, it's good if you can keep him upright and keep him healthy. It makes your team a monster. And in the division that you're in, you need all the monsters you can get. Because I would guess that the Raiders are going to stock up. They got a new regime out there. Pierce is running the show, and I trust his defensive acumen just from him being with the Giants and watching what he's done. So I know that he can get some horses out there. And then you got the Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions. They're always reloading and always expected to run the table. They don't always do that, but they always expected to do so. And then you got the Broncos, who I'm sure got some money. It's going to be, you got to get out there and fight. So having guys like Bosa and Mac is good if they're healthy. Mm-hmm. Anybody else from this list that kind of just jumps out at you? If not, we'll keep on moving forward. Hunter Renfrow, don't want him on your team?
I mean, he was good until he wasn't all of a sudden, I
mean, I'm realistic about what the Seahawks have cap-wise. They can't afford any of those guys. Like,
okay.
Jamal Adams is going to be a cap casualty.
You don't like him anyway, so that's fine.
I'm fine with him. He's just always hurt.
Yeah.
Like, if he gets down, like him. I don't think that means what you think it means. Like, I think he's a fine player if he can stay healthy. He just can't stay healthy, so it doesn't make sense to pay him what he's making. Right. But, when he's on the field, like, I like what he brings to a pass rush. But, at the end of the day, your best ability is availability, right? So it's you're paying him millions and millions to not play. It doesn't make sense. So, ultimately, he's a cap casualty for sure.
That's the easier one because, you say, he's injured a lot. But Locke is like he's gonna come back for a 10th season. It's like 32 years old. They can save $17 million if they cut him before June 1st. Or after June 1st.
That might be a cut and re-sign situation.
Yeah, and then the cap going up a record amount too.
And
they're like, and you guys are still having cap problems. Or not you. I mean, like in general, teams having cap problems, and the cap is going up record numbers. Like.
Exactly.
Yeah. What are you guys doing?
Well, it's because so many of these teams kicked the money down the road for guys and all come and due at the same time. So, which is fine if you're like the Rams and it worked. But if you did all of that creative financing and you didn't get there, all of a sudden, now you're going to get way worse because you have to let everybody go. Right. So, we'll see how it works. The Hawks aren't in the worst cap trouble in the league for sure, but you can't have guys like Jamal Adams chewing up a bunch of cap. But Lockett is interesting because he's still the best receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody,
I like him a lot. I like Lockett. I'm partial to him, but
the thing is he is the most productive receiver on the roster. He catches everything that's by him, and he doesn't get hurt because he typically catches the ball, goes to the ground. Now, as a fan, it's a little frustrating to watch because you're like, man, try and get some of those yards after catch. But at the same time, he's going to get 2 or 3 extra yards and get absolutely lit up by a guy that has 60 pounds on it. It's like, okay, like I get he's making business decisions to keep himself in the league. I can't really be that mad at it. Doug Baldwin did it for years. So, it's, but that being said, he is generally healthy. So it's tough to move off him. Like of the 2 receivers, you almost move off of DK. He has good draft. You get good draft compensation to trade him. You save a ton of money because he's every bit as expensive as Lockett. And there's actually quite a few good receivers that you could pick up at 16. So,
we'll see what happens, man. This is probably going to change. There could be a lot more names in that list before you know it. This is an ongoing situation. So we got time to talk about it. Let's drop down some of the rest of these comments and we'll go ahead and close out. So Raj from the Herb and Raj podcast. Of course, you can find them every Tuesday evening, 9 p.m. EST.
They sort of talk about sports stuff. You know, they have their own little thing.
Yeah, you know that Tuesday thing. Richard. So while you're okay with Og believing,
yeah, I like that Tuesday thing. I'm good.
Outshined them. I'm you know Wilkins. Okay, Wilkins did have a really good season, barring the injuries and stuff. So that's fine. Ogba was expendable in your mind. No worries there. He's having a good season until he got hurt. Now, well, anyways,
I'm actually like, if you pick like an AFC and an NFC team, like I don't feel like that's a violation. I feel like, you know, if you pick,
I didn't think I was violating anything. I mean, because this is not easy for me either. You know, this is not easy for me either. You know, I don't even know why I'm even drawing to this team.
Yeah,
I mean,
Harbaugh being there, you don't do the Chargers
makes
like
it more palatable.
Yeah.
Nah, it's not the same. I ain't wearing no powder blue up in here. That ain't ever gonna happen. I'm just following them. So yeah, I like the Chargers. I've been liking them since the 80s. I don't know why. It just is. I ain't wearing no powder blue. Don't worry about it. It's never gonna happen.
I mean, you can appreciate another team. Like, I always like the defense of the Ravens.
When I first met you, had 4 teams that you told me about. I'm like, I didn't think you were violating anything.
Well, I don't necessarily follow 4 teams. Like, I follow my team. I like the defense and the mentality of the Ravens defense.
And then you told me Washington too. I think some of you mentioned too. I'm like, okay, well.
No, that's it. Just those 2.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know about me violating, but it's gonna be on my Twitter page. It's gonna be Chargers stuff. So just learn to deal with it. I'm making new friends that are Chargers fans. It just is what it is. I'm here. I'm here for it. And Harbaugh and Minute out there now. Yeah, this is happening. So thank you, Herb, for the encouragement about the NFC thing. I appreciate it. Talk to your brother. I don't know why he doing me like this, but okay, it is what it is. But okay. But any other closing thoughts before we close the show out, man? Anything else going on? I want to talk about UCLA and Eric Bieniemy, but we can't do it. Adrian Peterson can do it. Got to try that either maybe Wednesday perhaps or next Monday. Richard Sherman. I don't even want to talk about Richard Sherman. I don't even want to go there. I don't want none of that mess. But all right, man. But hey, thanks for joining us again, guys. We appreciate you guys. Herb and Watch podcast every Tuesday evening at 9 p.m. EST. Raj in the comment section dominating as usual. Football talk with Bo. Wednesday wrap. Every Wednesday, 9 a.m. EST. And of course, you got assorted shows, Hawk Talk every week as well. And he's on a whole bunch of different platforms and shows and podcasts, man. The man's moving, man. He's working way harder than we are, man. But thanks for joining us again on this Monday thing. We appreciate you so much. Any closing thoughts, guys, before we shut it down?
Great show, guys. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no, just the way I like starting Monday morning.
Agreed.
Let's get this week.
All right. Coach out. All right.